this past weekend. And I've been wanting to visit Ireland for years and years. I don't know why, it just seemed like a beautiful green place, with lots of story and music. And so we went, and we were, blessed with this glorious sunny weather that the Irish told us it's not very common. So we were very lucky. Um, and we saw, you know, um, the rolling green hills and the sheep and the, beautiful waters, and um, had much music in the pubs, and fish and chips and the stew, and it was wonderful. And the Irish people were so warm and friendly, and and just funny, and just very engaging, right? Everything that you think of when you think of the Irish. Um, and so it was a lovely trip. Um, and in the midst of it, I also learned a lot. Um, I went into the trip not necessarily knowing a lot about Irish history, aside from what I was taught in school growing up. And we were so fortunate to have some tour guides, and that, it felt like sitting around a fire, right? And they drive these small, tour vans of 10, 12 people. And we were lucky because it was actually off season. So it was only like 6 people. And they would, I remember one telling us really like the history of the land and the people. And you could feel the deep love for his country, and for the land and the flora, the fauna, and for everything his people had experienced. And as we were driving around, um, one of the things that he shared was these old buildings that you would, like, in American terms, very, very old buildings that were like kind of crumbling and still there. And that sometimes people thought that, oh, well, they're just not keeping up the place, right? They're not repairing these buildings. Um, but that actually, some of these buildings had been left there as sort of monuments to the history of some of the things that had happened in Ireland over the years. Um, and that it had to do with the Great Famine. That when I was growing up, I thought, oh, well, there's just this like potato blight that caused people to not have food. And that led it to the famine, and also to this mass migration out of Ireland. And so what I learned, though, was that there was more to the story, and that the Great Famine actually was a confluence of factors. Yes, there was a potato blight where they pulled up the potatoes, and they would be like black and falling apart. Um, and also, there was a situation in the world at that time where the Industrial Revolution was happening, and that Ireland actually produced a lot of food, far more than their population needed. But that the food was shipped out and exported to feed, the basically England and all the workers that were coming in. And that surprised me because it was a history that I had never heard. Um, and and I don't mean to, perhaps some of you have English in your background and English history. So this is of no intended offense, just kind of sharing the stories and the understanding that I'd heard on this trip. Um, and that because the food was being shipped out of Ireland, that the Irish people themselves didn't have enough food, and that many of them starved, um, and that there were these buildings that were left because families had starved in them, and it was a type of a makeshift monument to allow the buildings to stand there as a memorial to the experience, and that they sometimes went to the to the English or to the church and asked for food during this time, um, and were turned away, and that might um, to me it seems surprising because I hadn't heard that before, right? um, and 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 it was I think an experience that actually uh, many of the Irish that had shared this with us, they also didn't learn it um, as they were, it was a story that was untold, and that their elders didn't necessarily share with them, um, and that they're only like really now connecting with and learning from the history, and from what people are uncovering and sharing. And the reason I bring this up is that is talk about and to connect with um, how trauma can be passed through generations, and people don't even know that it's being passed on, and that for some of the people that were sharing these stories with us, they would say how this was the history, but perhaps they didn't know, and that once they learned, then they realized, oh, well, maybe that's why um, we spent so much time in the pubs, because there wasn't any other way to deal with it, right? And that a history of enjoying the pubs is wonderful, but that sometimes when things became a lot to bear, um, maybe the pubs were also a place of solace and a place of forgetting that when family members have to leave or when people you love pass away, that, a pub was a place to forget. And that at this time, people are maybe starting to remember. Um, they, I remember one guy even saying that I think there was a Native Americans in the US during this time, one particular group that had no money of their own, but heard about what was happening in Ireland, and they sent everything they had. And when the man was talking about this, he got tearful because he was like, they were poor people too, and they had nothing, and they gave to us. Um, and and that the people in his village deeply remembered, and that during COVID times, when they heard about Native Americans struggling, their the village in Ireland sent money over to the US, and the people receiving it were like, why are we getting money from Ireland? Like, where is this coming from? Um, but Ireland remembered, right? They remembered that kindness in a very deep way. And so while things may be hard, there's also moments of kindness, right? And when I was hearing about, what some of this Irish history, it reminded me of some of the history that I've heard from, working with veterans over the years, and how, from grandfather to father to son, that experience of a war right? Um, when you might directly experience it in combat, or maybe there was a war where your family came from, or some other big experience, right? Be it a loss or a sadness or, um, a death, whatever it may be, that was somewhere in your family history or somewhere in your country's history or cultural history. Um, that not all the time people were able to be with it and see it and take care of it in that moment. That people did the best they could, and sometimes uh, ways of being with it were passed on through the years, um, to the point where people just would say, like, I don't know why we're doing this, but grandpa did this and great grandpa did this, and this is just how we are. um, which, in many ways can be wonderful, and in other ways may no longer serve, right? Um, and so in looking at at how some of this intergenerational patterning can be passed on, it's kind of like looking at, you know, in Buddhism, you might say, well, there's ignorance and there's craving and there's aversion, right? And maybe ignorance and related to this is just not wanting, not understanding where things come from. Um, or maybe craving is wanting safety or protection or things to be a certain way. And maybe aversion is, wanting to push away the things that are difficult. And so in looking at all this, um, we might give ourselves an opportunity to look at um, our own places of struggle or difficulty. Um, and maybe some of it is um, from our own situations and choices. And maybe some of it is connected to um, things that we might have inherited in one way or another, or maybe they were passed on to us, one way or another. And and so I think of self-compassion and compassion as the way to interrupt these intergenerational cycles of trauma or suffering that get passed on. Um, that in moments where we are able to really be with and see our experience, that there's a potential for waking up and for healing. And so um, I'll invite everybody right now to maybe reflect on for yourself a place where you struggle. So we can actually close our eyes if that would be helpful. So inviting the eyes to close, and perhaps inviting the body to soften as best you can. And perhaps connecting with the breath. And Now, maybe noticing an area in your life that you struggle with, perhaps a old familiar pattern, or perhaps an emotion that comes up again and again. Maybe something that there's some awareness that this might have started long before you. And just allowing yourself to gently connect with this as best you can with a sense of kindness and care. Perhaps noticing how it feels in the body. Perhaps noticing how this has been hard for you. And perhaps, perhaps connecting with what you might believe or feel about yourself. And perhaps with great kindness, acknowledging that this is a moment of suffering. And that suffering is part of being human. It connects you with the entire human race. And if it's right for you, you might rest your hand on your heart and, and really see yourself in this moment as best you can, connecting and seeing yourself. And perhaps connecting with the words that might offer you some comfort and kindness in this moment. Perhaps, may I be kind to myself, or another phrase, unique to you, And perhaps noticing where this challenge or difficulty or suffering may have come from. Perhaps an ancestor or a moment in time or an event that happened at some time. And perhaps inviting awareness to what might have come before. And it might be something that you don't really know the details of, or you've only heard a little bit, or perhaps you know it quite well. As best as you're able to. Allowing whatever, wherever the roots came from, to become vivid. And perhaps noticing and seeing that that too was a moment of suffering or an experience of suffering that perhaps was not seen, not acknowledged during that time. And that experience was part of being human. And if there's a phrase, a words you might offer, offering those words. And with our breath, we can also offer compassion. So perhaps as you breathe in, breathing in the abundant compassion for your own experience. And as you breathe out, breathing out compassion to what may have come before. And if there's any difficulty, have kindness and compassion for that as well. And perhaps offering these phrases to the ones who came before me. May you be free from suffering. And to myself, may I be held in compassion. And to the generations to come, may you know love. May you know peace. May you be free. And perhaps when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. Mm. And so, yeah. So as we see more clearly and grow in compassion, then we see more clearly the roots of our suffering, um, and hopefully can uh, be with them in ways that are different or more gentle or more wise. And so I just appreciate you all for connecting with the meditation today. And wanted to just open the space. If people would like to share or to discuss, or if there's any questions. Yeah. Uh,
Thank you, Jennifer, for such a beautiful and helpful and timely offering this evening. Thank you. It's really wonderful. The timeliness for me, I have recently been reconnecting with a first cousin of mine named Lauren, and her father and my mother are siblings. And she and I, growing up, had always had a close spark of connection between us. But as kids, and we went off to school and had our own families, and all of that, growing away and apart. Uh, but recently, we've come back into close connection, and she's in her mid-40s now, and I'm in my late 40s now, and it's really been an amazing blessing to connect on a depthful level with a family member, um, with whom I was close as kids, and now that we're adults, together looking at family dynamics and family relationships through the generations of our parents and grandparents and great grandparents whom we knew, and just being able talk about those and to share about those, not in blaming ways, but in clarifying and compassionate ways now, together, sort of on the inside, of this familial tree. And it's just been a really lovely and potentially healing thing, I think, for both of us now, and then going forward as we age, as our parents age. And it's I was feeling all of that during your talk, and just feeling gratitude and for the connection, and for I guess that community that Lauren and I are sharing, and looking at both the lovely things about our family and the challenging things about our family. So, family of origin. So anyway, thank you. It's just a lovely and timely sharing for me. So really appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing. It's um and it makes me think of Sangha, and how, when family members can come together and really have that connection, that there's the potential for just so much, you know, mm, for healing and growth, and also like a deep understanding. It's such an opportunity because, I think in previous generations, when people are surviving, there's no, you know, you just survive, right? Or when things are hard, or that, wasn't as accepted to be with things in the way that we are now. So I'm just so happy for you that you and your cousin have this opportunity. Yeah, thank you. Would anybody else like to share that stake?
Yeah, just good to be here in our Sangha. And I had missed not being part of some of the offerings of the Sangha for a bit. And it just felt timely to give it a shot tonight. And just feeling a lot of connectedness with uh, and with the ancestors. I thought of not only family, but I thought of friends that I've known many years ago, and just memories of that, and how rich it is to reflect back on some of that, and how easily that can be rekindled like a picture or something. And so that whole exploration of how digging into history, it could be what's described by others or one's own personal history, but there's something that's very magical about looking into this doorway of the construct of time, which is so alive when we recognize that memories are also in now time, and all the stuff that comes up with that. So I'm just very grateful for our Sangha, and the different folks that are sharing. I enjoy your sharing, and that was a reminder of, also for me as you were speaking. It's interesting how alive those connections can become, just like that, when somebody else says something. And so here we are, and it's good to be here. And I left my eating meditation into the breath. I still have particles in my mouth that I haven't finished chewing for, and I'm just feeling that just the impulse to focus on the body and the breathing and the hearing, what people are sharing, just being together with you all. So just a delight to be here again. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing, and wonderful to see you today. Any other reflections or sharing that people would like to bring into the space?
I'll share. Thank you for the talk. That was lovely. I really appreciate the kindness with which you delivered that. There was something that struck me that you said that it felt quite skillful. So like this talk was about trauma that, comes in from the folks that come before. But what you did was that you also brought in the folks that are going to come after, which it seems like it's such a helpful kind of reframing of the situation, right? Because when you bring in the people that are going to come, after me, then practice becomes a gift. Like, what can I give to these people? And it's just such a different feeling than just sitting in your own kind of experience of this trauma or this suffering. So I appreciate that you brought that in.
Thank you for sharing, Stephen. Yeah, there's that the benefit from the practice is not just for ourselves, it's for all that come, behind us and with us and for all beings. So I'm glad that we're able to connect with that, right? That the practice is for all, really, right? So thank you for sharing. Any other thoughts or reflections? Thank you for all of you for your sharing and for being part of this sangha, really. In times of different things happening in the world, it's always so good to see your faces and to connect with you all and to know that even though we're miles apart, like in different places in the world, there's still this connection and this gift of transformation and awakening that happens when we come together in a way that really is beyond what any individual person sitting can do, right? Thich Nhat Hanh said at one point that the next Buddha isn't an individual, it's the Sangha, it's the community that wakes up. So I just connect with that when we're together and appreciate everyone's practice and sharing. So I guess we'll finish for tonight, unless anybody else wants to bring their voice into this space. And just a reminder to everybody that should you be interested in offering dana, that you can do that on the Dassanaya website, and that all the dana from today's talks will go to the Dassanaya community. And also just keep up your practice, because it's just wonderful for the world. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next time. Take good care.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, Sangha.
Thank you.
Take good care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.